What's up, YouTube? Coming to you today from my kitchen because I want to talk to you about 3 very common mistakes that I see people make with their nutrition. And I want to put this out there. I've made all 3 of these, every single one of these mistakes. And they're not anything, I think that people don't do these purposefully. Sometimes we just don't know. That was certainly the case with me. So I want to bring them to your attention. And if you've been struggling, that maybe one of these 3 tips will help you to get the progress going again and to get you moving forward, okay? So the first mistake I see people make is not paying attention to hunger. So I guess I would ask you this question. How is your hunger? Do you ever feel hungry? And sometimes people tell me they never allow themselves to get hungry. That's a big red flag to me, because if you're in a calorie deficit, you need to feel hunger. That's part of what's happening. Your body, it's how our bodies process and how our bodies work. So you do need to feel hunger. Now, I put this on kind of a spectrum, a hunger spectrum. We have one extreme where you're starving 24/7, always hungry. That's not good. That's not what I'm talking about. And then we're way over here on this end where you're never hungry. Or at the first sign of hunger, you start eating something because you don't want to experience that feeling. That's how I was. The second my stomach growled, I would go grab something. And here's the thing, we're way over here with being starving all the time, and we're way over here with never allowing ourselves to be hungry. There's a whole gray area in the middle, which is where we need to be if we're in a calorie deficit. So sometimes I think what happens is the second our stomach starts to growl, we get a little uncomfortable. And we don't want that uncomfortable feeling to grow and get more uncomfortable. So we go and we grab something to eat. That's our instinct. And those kind of calories start to add up, especially if we're not tracking them. And even if you are tracking them, we want to maybe spread them out throughout the course of the day differently so you can allow your body to experience hunger. You know, I think it's really important to say this here, that sometimes we have to be uncomfortable. We have to, and we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. It kind of sounds weird, but it's really true if you think about it. We're not going to starve. Just because our stomach's growling doesn't mean that we're way over here. So instead of jumping something the very first second our stomach starts to growl, let it growl. If you want to grab some seltzer water, do that. If you want to have a cup of coffee, do that. But don't start grabbing food just when you're starting to feel that first initial little stomach growl. Let it happen. You do get used to that. It should not be painful. It should not be on your mind all the time. And if it is, you want to look at your calories. You want to look at how you're distributing your calories. And if you're starving all the time, what you definitely want to look at is your amount of calories for sure. And then also maybe the kinds of foods you're eating. Maybe you need to find foods that will keep you feeling fuller longer. So there's a lot of things that can happen on either end of these spectrums, but we want to be in the middle. So allow your body to be hungry and start learning to be comfortable with hunger. That's number 1. Number 2, those fitness trackers that everyone uses are great. They can track your calories, they can track your activity and your sleep. Fantastic, super helpful. Most of them will also tell you this: hey, you've earned 400 calories back from all your activity today. Great, congratulations. And so what most people do is they'll put 400 calories back into their daily calorie requirement, thinking that they actually burned those 400 calories. So now they're just putting them back in. It seems like a bonus, a win-win. The problem is those fitness trackers, no matter what they are wrong all the time, up to 50%. So what that means is if your fitness tracker is telling you you burned 400 calories of exercise today, the reality is maybe it was 200, 250, maybe. The problem is you don't know, because those are not inherently accurate. So if you go and you add those 400 calories in, you could very well be going over your calorie deficit by 250 calories every single day that you do that. So instead of adding those back in, just don't pay attention to those numbers. And if your tracker allows you to deprogram that piece of information, I would just do that. Because here's the thing, you can't control that number. Every time you get on the elliptical and it tells you you've burned 300 calories, it's much less than that. And the problem is we just don't know how many calories it is. So instead of trying to play that game, you can't control that. Focus on what you can control, which is really, what am I taking in? What am I eating? What am I drinking? That piece you can control, and you can be very accurate with that. So just don't ignore that kind of information from your fitness tracker, or deprogram it, which would be actually even better if you can do that. Okay, so that's number 2. Don't pay any attention to those calories you've earned back from exercise. All right, and the third thing, and this is the one thing that got me the most, I call them LBTs, licks, bites, and tastes. Throughout the course of a day, you know how we grab a handful of this, or really when we're cooking dinner for our family or something, we're sampling this as we're cooking. Oh, we have an extra piece of cheese, don't need it, I'm just going to eat it instead of wrapping it up and putting it back in the fridge. Or, you know, our kids are at the dinner table, they're not eating the rest of their dinner, I'm just going to pick off their plate. Especially when you go out. This was what I was really guilty of. When you go out, your kid always gets fries or something like that. I'm guilty totally of picking off my kids' plates with fries. Not even thinking, oh, those calories don't count because I didn't order them. I mean, that was what I was thinking at the time. I didn't think that I really should count those for me. The other thing that I did, and I don't know if you have done this, is I would grab a handful of almonds. And then maybe later in the day, I would grab another handful of almonds. So at the end of the day, I have probably grabbed, I don't know, 400 calories worth of almonds by the end of the day. Never tracked them, not one time. And the reason is because they were probably just in passing. I wasn't sitting down and having this meal that had almonds. I was just passing by and grabbing a handful of almonds and shoving them in my mouth, because I was feeling hungry, and I wasn't letting hunger happen, so I just put almonds in my mouth. And if you do that a couple times a day, for me that was almost 400 calories probably pretty close to that, just with almonds. I didn't even add on to that the licks, bites, and tastes that I might have had throughout the course of the day, or that latte I got at a drive-thru that I didn't even count because I thought in my head it was coffee, but really it had 150 calories in it. So there's a lot of extra calories throughout the day that we consume that we often don't record, we don't track, and those can add up to hundreds and hundreds of calories a day. So if you've been struggling with fat loss, this could be a key for you to really look at how you go about your day and what you are actually tracking and what you're not tracking. And so here's what I encourage you to try. I encourage you to get out just a notepad, literally, and everything that you put in your mouth, write it down. I had a spoonful of this. I had a latte. I ate 5 fries off my kid's plate. I had a handful of cashews. Whatever it is, write it all down so you can actually see how many things you're actually putting in your mouth throughout the course of a day. And then at some point you can become way more aware of that, and maybe opt not to take that handful of almonds or cashews or whatever, not to take the fries off the plate. You can start decreasing your calories that way. Because here's what I find. I find that some of my clients' calories look great on paper. Like it looks like they're hitting their calorie ranges, everything looks great, but over a long course of time, they haven't made very much progress really with the scale. The measurements are changing slightly. I mean, they're making progress, but maybe not as much as they could be. And that's after we analyze everything, that's what we find is going on. That there's so many things that they aren't tracking. And I think this gets people into trouble all the time, and it's not purposeful, it's just something I did it. Boy, did I ever do it. So just keeping track of that can really save you a lot of calories if you are one of these people that tends to sample and taste and take a bite of this. And so I encourage you to track that for several days in a row and just get a hold of exactly what is going in your mouth. So we got the three things. We've got hunger cues. Are you hungry? Let yourself be hungry. And if you're not allowing yourself to be hungry, let's look at calorie distribution, number of calories that you are consuming a day, and maybe spread them out differently. But have some ways to manage hunger if that makes you super nervous. Seltzer water, coffee, and another thing that worked for me was gum. I like to chew. That just made me feel like I was eating something. So gum could be something else that you could try, but let yourself get hungry. This is going to take some practice if you've never allowed yourself to get hungry like this before, okay? That's number one. Number two was those fitness trackers. Don't pay any attention to any numbers that it gives you about how many calories you burn, because they're not accurate. I just don't want you to add those calories back in and think that you're still coming out in a deficit, because you won't be. All right, so just deprogram it or just pay no attention to those numbers, okay? And then the third thing is be way, way more aware of all the LBTs that you take throughout the course of a day, because they all add up to hundreds and hundreds of extra calories a day, okay? I hope this is helpful. A lot of this is coming from my own experience, so I want to make sure I let you guys know I've been there too, and I am always here to help you. If you have any questions, please drop them here below, and I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. Hope you guys have a great day, and thank you so much for being here. Take care.